Conscience is the compass that points toward truth, even when the world demands you sail in the opposite direction. What would you do if doing the right thing meant losing everything you ever loved? Ethan Wade's finger hovered over the mouse. The cursor blinked on a folder labeled Night Shift, January. His hand trembled. Not from the cold. The Iraqi desert never got truly cold, even at night. The trembling came from somewhere deeper, some primal instinct, warning him that this moment would matter. He clicked. If stories like this move you, consider subscribing. Your support helps us bring these forgotten voices to light. The laptop screen flickered. Blue light washed across Ethan's face in the darkness of his tent. Canvas walls rippled in the wind outside. Sand scraped against the fabric like fingernails on cloth. Generators hummed their endless mechanical prayer in the distance. Somewhere beyond the wire, voices called out in Arabic from the detention blocks. Prayers or pleas or both. The first image loaded, pixel by pixel. Top to bottom, a hooded man. Arms raised above his head, wrists zip-tied to an exposed water pipe. Body sagging forward, every muscle trembling from exhaustion. The hood was filthy, stained dark with what might be blood or vomit. Bare feet swollen, toes curled inward. Ribs visible through bruised skin, but worse, so much worse, were the 3 soldiers in the frame. Faces clearly visible, smiling, one with a thumbs up. Another leaning casually against the wall, like he was posing for a vacation photo. The third laughing, mouth open wide, genuine amusement in his eyes. Ethan's stomach dropped. His breath caught, held, released slowly through clenched teeth. The laptop felt suddenly hot against his thighs, burning through his cargo pants. He knew those soldiers. Staff Sergeant Marcus Reeves, who'd helped him fix his Humvee last month. Private Tommy Chen, who played guitar in the rec room. Specialist David Kowalski, who showed everyone photos of his fiancée. He'd eaten breakfast with them this morning. Eggs and toast. Chen had made everyone laugh with a story about his mother's terrible cooking. Kowalski had shown off his engagement ring again, couldn't stop talking about the wedding plans. And now here they were. Torturing a human being, smiling about it. His hand moved to the trackpad, fingers trembling. Scrolled. The next photo appeared. Worse. A prisoner with electrodes attached to his body, wires running to a car battery on the concrete floor. The soldier holding the terminals was laughing, head thrown back, like someone had just told the funniest joke he'd ever heard. Then the next. Worse still. Multiple detainees forced into a naked human pyramid, trembling, while 3 soldiers posed around them like hunters with their kill. 47 images total. Each one a nightmare painted in pixels, mock executions. Prisoners on their knees, weapons pointed at their heads, terror frozen in their visible eyes. Waterboarding. A man strapped to a board, water cascading over cloth covering his face, body convulsing. Beatings, fists, boots, batons. And in nearly every photo, nearly every single one, American soldiers grinned. Thumbs up, peace signs, casual, comfortable, proud. Captions written in marker on white borders. Bad guy getting what he deserves. Teaching Haji a lesson. Night shift fun. Timestamps in the corner of each image. January 3rd, January 8th, January 11th, 3 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. Last Tuesday, not history. Not some dark chapter from the early days of the war. Now. Present tense, ongoing, active. Happening in the same facility where Ethan worked his night shifts. The same detention blocks he walked past every evening. The same interrogation rooms he escorted prisoners to. Same hallways. And same guards. Same war. His hands shook so hard he had to set the laptop down on his cot before he dropped it. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the chill. The tent temperature dropped 20 degrees after sunset in the desert, but Ethan felt like he was burning from the inside. His heart hammered against his ribs. Ba-boom, ba-boom, ba-boom. So loud he was sure the soldiers in the next tent could hear it. The tent suddenly felt too small, walls pressing inward, canvas ceiling descending, air too thick to breathe properly. He stood, paced 3 steps to the tent wall, turned, paced back. 3 steps, turn, repeat. His mind raced faster than his feet. He thought of his father. Sergeant Major Thomas Wade, 2 tours in Vietnam. A Bronze Star for valor. 3 Purple Hearts. The man who'd come home from Saigon with nightmares he never talked about and principles he never shut up about. The man who'd taught Ethan, from the time he was old enough to understand, that soldiers protect the innocent. That America fights wars to stop atrocities, not commit them. That the uniform meant something sacred. He thought of his grandfather. Private First Class Robert Wade, Normandy Beach, D-Day, June 6, 1944. Stormed those beaches at 19 years old. Fought across France. Liberated concentration camps. Came home believing, truly believing, that America was different. That they were the good guys. That the sacrifice meant something because they stood for something. He thought of the oath he'd sworn when he raised his right hand and joined the Army Reserve. To defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. To bear true faith and allegiance. The oath every soldier swears. The oath that meant Ethan Wade was bound, legally and morally, to report war crimes. But he also thought of loyalty. The word every drill sergeant hammered into every recruit from day one. Brotherhood, the sacred bond between soldiers. Never leave a man behind. Never betray your unit. Never break the trust that keeps men alive when bullets fly and mortars fall. The idea that your brother in arms matters more than anything, more than yourself, more than politics, more than the whole damn world. The photos glowed on the screen. Evidence of torture, war crimes. Happening right now. Tomorrow night, when he reported for duty, those same soldiers would be there. Those same prisoners would be suffering. Ethan closed his eyes, breathed, tried to think. His father's voice echoed in his memory. Anyone can carry a gun and hurt people. That doesn't make you a soldier. A soldier has honor. He opened his eyes, stared at the photos, made a decision, but he didn't know what was coming. 3 days later, Ethan stood outside the Judge Advocate General's office. A flash drive in his pocket felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. His uniform stuck to his back with sweat. His mouth was dry. His legs wanted to run. He didn't run. The door opened. Captain Rebecca Holloway sat behind her desk. Sharp eyes, stern expression. She looked up. "Sir, I need to report a situation. 7 words." A grenade with the pin pulled. Captain Holloway took the flash drive. Inserted it. Her face remained neutral as she scrolled. Click, click, click. Her jaw tightened. Her posture stiffened. She reached the last photo. Looked up at Ethan. "Do you understand what you're bringing me, Specialist Wade?" "Yes, ma'am." "Your name will be in every report, every deposition, every hearing." His throat constricted. "Yes, ma'am. Why are you doing this?" The question hung between them, heavy, loaded. Ethan swallowed. His voice came out quieter than he intended. "Because someone has to, ma'am." Captain Holloway studied his face for a long moment. Then she picked up the phone. 3 sentences. The call that would destroy his life. Within 2 hours, CID agents swarmed the base. Within 6 hours, the soldiers from the photos sat in custody. Within 12 hours, the Pentagon knew. Within 24 hours, someone leaked Ethan Wade's name, and then the world exploded. The first email arrived on a Tuesday. Ethan opened it without thinking. The subject line, Traitor. The message was short, explicit, detailed. It listed his home address in Cumberland Falls, Pennsylvania. It described exactly how the sender planned to kill him. Step by step. Which bones they'd break first. Ethan's hands went numb. He closed the laptop. Opened it again. 5 more emails. Same theme. Different threats. By Wednesday, dozens. By Thursday, hundreds. His Facebook flooded. His sister's Instagram bombarded. Death threat after death threat. Some creative, most just violent conservative news sites ran his photo. Inolja betrays unit in Iraq, radio hosts debated. Forums raged. The internet had decided Ethan Wade was a rat, a snitch, a traitor who'd sided with terrorists against his own brothers. Nobody asked what he'd actually reported. Nobody cared about the photos. The narrative was set. He'd betrayed the troops. It was enough. Back home, the nightmare spread. Cumberland Falls, Pennsylvania. Population 8,400, nestled in the Appalachian foothills. 3 churches. 1 high school. 2 gas stations. A main street with brick storefronts unchanged since the 1950s. Every 3rd car sported a yellow ribbon sticker. Every other family had someone deployed overseas. Iraq, Afghanistan, Germany, Korea. American flags hung from porches up and down every street. This was a military town through and through, a place where serving your country wasn't just respected, it was expected, and Ethan Wade had just become their enemy. Their betrayer. Their Judas. His parents' house was the first target. A modest, two-story colonial on Elm Street, where Thomas and Linda Wade had lived for 35 years. Where they'd raised their children. Where 3 generations of Wades had gathered for Thanksgiving and Christmas and 4th of July barbecues. Someone threw red paint across the front door in the middle of the night. Traitor, in letters 2 feet tall, dripping down the white wood like blood. His mother, Linda Wade, stood on the porch the next morning staring at it. Coffee mug forgotten in her hand, liquid cold and untouched. Neighbors watched from their yards. Mrs. Peterson from next door, who'd been at Linda's book club for 15 years. Mr. Chen from across the street, whose son was deployed to the same base as Ethan. The Kowalski family, 3 doors down. Nobody came over to help. Nobody offered sympathy. They just watched, judged, turned away. 2 days later, windows shattered. 3 of them. Living room. In dining room. Claire's bedroom upstairs. Rocks through the glass at 2 a.m., the crash jolting the family awake. Thomas Wade, 62 years old, 30 years in uniform, respected by everyone in Cumberland Falls, went to the hardware store to buy plywood and replacement glass. The kid behind the counter, Tommy Sanders, used to work on cars at Thomas's repair shop, had known the Wade family since he was 10, wouldn't meet his eyes. Just rang up the purchase in silence. No small talk. No questions about how the family was holding up. Nothing. Thomas carried the plywood to his truck. Past 3 men he'd served with in the VFW. Drank with every Friday for 20 years. They crossed the street to avoid him. Literally crossed the street, mid-conversation, to avoid walking past Thomas Wade. Former friends who'd held his children as babies now treated him like a leper. At Cumberland Falls High School, Claire Wade sat in homeroom 3rd period Tuesday morning. 17 years old, junior year. Captain of the debate team. On a roll every semester since freshman year. Already collecting college brochures, Harvard, Yale, Princeton. Bright future ahead. Or she'd had one, before her brother became the most hated man in America. Her phone buzzed in her backpack. Instagram notification. She pulled it out, expecting a message from her debate partner about their upcoming tournament. Instead, a photo. Her locker, spray-painted. Traitor's sister in black letters 3 inches tall, dripping down the green metal. She looked up slowly. 23 classmates stared at her. Some smirked. Others looked away quickly, embarrassed to be caught watching. Her best friend since kindergarten, Sarah Mitchell, the girl she'd shared every secret with for 11 years, pretended to be very interested in her world history textbook, eyes locked on the page. Not looking up, the teacher, Mrs. Henderson, who'd taught Claire's brother Ethan 6 years ago, cleared her throat. Shifted weight from one foot to the other, looked uncomfortable. Like Claire was the problem, not the vandalism, not the cruelty, not the mob mentality overtaking their small town. Claire, maybe you should go to the office, as if Claire were the one who'd done something wrong. As if removing her from the classroom would solve anything. She gathered her books slowly, deliberately, refused to rush. Refused to show them she was hurt, even though she was. Even though her hands trembled slightly as she zipped her backpack. Even though tears burned behind her eyes, threatening to spill. She walked down the hallway with her head up. Every classroom she passed, faces turned to watch her through the door windows. Eyes following. Whispers echoing off lockers. That's her. Can you believe her brother? Traitor's sister, the debate team captain. Honor roll student, college-bound. Girl who'd never been in trouble, never caused a scene, never done anything except work hard and be kind. Now just the traitor's sister. That's all she was. That's all she would ever be in Cumberland Falls. Then came the fire. February 2nd, 3:17 a.m. Thomas Wade couldn't sleep. Too many thoughts. Too much worry. He stood at the living room window, looking out at the quiet street. A truck pulled up. Engine idling. A figure stepped out. Arm pulled back. Something flew through the air. Glass shattered, Flames erupted across the front porch. Thomas ran to wake his wife. "Linda, fire! Get out!" They stumbled outside. Neighbors' lights flicked on. The fire department arrived. Hoses deployed. Water sprayed. The flames died, but the message was clear: you're not safe here anymore. The FBI agents arrived the next morning. 2 of them. Dark suits. Serious expressions. They sat in the Wade family living room, scorched porch visible through the window, and explained the situation. Credible threats against your son. Against your family. We're recommending relocation. Thomas Wade, who'd faced enemy fire in Vietnam and never flinched, felt something inside him crack. This is our home. Sir, right now this home is a target. 48 hours later, the Wade family was gone. Relocated to a safe house in Maryland. New names. New identities. New lives. Their house sat empty. Thomas's auto repair shop closed, a for sale sign in the window. Claire's senior year evaporated. Debate team without its captain. College applications never sent. All because Ethan clicked on a folder. Meanwhile, 8,000 miles away, Ethan transferred to a different base. For his protection, they said. But military bases weren't designed for privacy. Everyone knew. Everyone always knew. He walked into the mess hall. Conversation stopped. Soldiers stared. Some glared with open hostility. Others just looked away uncomfortable. Nobody sat at his table. He returned to his quarters one evening. A noose hung from the ceiling beam. A note pinned to his pillow. For rats, every day felt like walking through enemy territory. Except the enemy wore the same uniform he did. The investigation moved forward with bureaucratic efficiency. The soldiers from the photos were court-martialed. Evidence mounted. Systematic abuse. Multiple incidents. Policy failures. Congressional hearings scheduled. Justice from an institutional perspective. But institutions don't lie awake at night wondering if their family is safe. Institutions don't receive death threats. Institutions don't lose their hometown. Ethan did. Every single day, but wait, there's something you need to know. The night before Ethan testified, he received a letter, routed through multiple channels. Security cleared. His father's handwriting on the envelope, 3 pages. Thomas Wade's usually steady script, shaky with emotion. The letter didn't condemn. Didn't praise. Just asked one question that would echo forever. Was it worth it? Worth his sister's senior year? Worth his mother's depression? Worth his father's ruined business? Worth their exile from the only home they'd known? Ethan sat on his cot. Read the letter 5 times. Couldn't find an answer that felt true. The soldiers he'd exposed were being held accountable. The abuse had stopped. Policies were changing. In the grand calculus of justice, he'd done something meaningful, but at what cost? He folded the letter. Put it in his pocket. Tried to sleep. Failed. April brought the testimony. Ethan sat in a military courtroom. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Lawyers shuffled papers. The accused soldiers sat across the room, staring at him with hatred, so pure it felt physical. Defense attorneys attacked. Called him a malcontent, an attention seeker, someone with a grudge, someone who'd never fit in with the unit. Prosecutors defended. Called him courageous, a hero, a whistleblower who'd stood up for American values. Both sides were wrong. Ethan wasn't a hero or a villain. He was 24 years old, sitting in a room full of people who wanted him dead, trying to explain why he'd clicked on a folder and couldn't stay silent. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The verdict came down on a Thursday. Guilty, all defendants. Sentences ranged from 6 months to 3 years. Dishonorable discharges. End of military careers. Some people thought the sentences were too light. Or criminals getting slaps on the wrist. Others thought the whole thing was a witch hunt. Good soldiers crucified for doing their jobs in impossible circumstances. Ethan thought everyone was missing the point. But nobody asked him. Years blurred together, 2005. Ethan left the military, interned in his gear, walked off base, never looked back, 2006, job applications rejected. Background checks revealed his name. Employers didn't want controversy. He moved from city to city, state to state, never staying long enough to build anything real, 2007. Portland, logistics coordinator. Paid the rent. Kept his head down. Avoided conversations about his past. 2008. His family returned to Pennsylvania. Different town. His father opened a small repair shop. Different customers. Different life. The Wade name didn't mean anything there. That was the point. The immediate fury faded. News cycles moved on. New scandals. New villains. New outrages. But the damage remained. Permanent scars carved into all their lives. Finding work stayed difficult. Relationships failed before they started. Background checks. Google searches. The inevitable conversation. "So, what did you do in the military?" Followed by awkward silences. Dates that never got second chances. Most people didn't want that baggage. Ethan didn't blame them. He wouldn't want it either. But slowly, painfully slowly, the narrative began to shift. Academic papers documented the systematic abuse he'd exposed. Journalists wrote retrospective pieces acknowledging what he'd sacrificed. Human rights organizations sent awards to his P.O. box. He never attended the ceremonies, never accepted the plaques publicly. They sat in a closet collecting dust. Other whistleblowers reached out. Corporate fraud. Government waste. Environmental crimes. People who'd seen wrongdoing and couldn't stay silent. People who'd paid prices too. They wrote emails and made calls. Sought advice, solidarity, some confirmation they weren't crazy for thinking truth mattered more than comfort. Ethan responded when he could. Offered what wisdom he had. It wasn't much. Mostly just, it doesn't get easier. You learn to live with it. Then came 2012. A documentary filmmaker found him, young, earnest, wanting to tell important stories. They sat in Ethan's small apartment. Portland rain against the windows. Camera rolling. Was it worth it? Ethan looked at the rain. He thought about that question. The same one his father had asked 8 years earlier. I don't know if worth it is the right question. It's not a transaction. It's not cost-benefit analysis. It's about who you are. What you can live with, the filmmaker leaned forward. But your family, I know what they lost. I live with that every day. My sister still flinches when someone mentions our hometown. My father died 3 years ago without recovering. My mother won't really talk to me, so do you regret it? I regret the system leaked my name. I regret my sister paid for my choice. I regret that in America, we punish whistleblowers more than criminals. But the reporting itself? Ethan looked at the camera, direct, unflinching. No, because if I hadn't, I couldn't live with myself. And that's worth something. Maybe not everything. But something. The documentary aired. A few thousand viewers. Some called him brave, others called him a traitor. Most never heard of it, but the story doesn't end there. 2015, Thomas Wade died. Heart attack. The stress, the exile, the loss of everything he'd built. It broke something inside him that never healed. Ethan flew back for the funeral. Different town. Different cemetery. Not the family plot in Cumberland Falls where Wade's had been buried for 3 generations. His mother barely looked at him. His sister hugged him but said nothing. What was there to say? At the graveside, a handful of new friends from the new town. Nobody from Cumberland Falls made the trip. Ethan wondered if his father had ever forgiven him. 2018. Claire got married. Ethan wasn't invited. Not from hate. Just easier for everyone if he stayed away. He sent a gift. Got a thank you card. That was enough. 2020. Pandemic. Lockdowns. Ethan worked from home, saw nobody for weeks. It wasn't that different from his normal life, 20 years later, 2024. A journalist tracked him down. Younger than Ethan had been when he clicked that folder. Retrospective piece about the war. They met at a coffee shop in Portland. Rain outside. Always rain. Do you have any regrets? Ethan watched rain streak down the window. Thought about his sister, who'd rebuilt but couldn't go home. His father's grave in the wrong cemetery. His mother's silence, yes. Everything that happened to my family. Every consequence they suffered for my choice, the journalist typed. But would you do it again? Ethan took a sip of cold coffee, yes. Those men in those photos were human beings, suffering. Nobody else was going to stop it. Someone had to. That's not very satisfying. No, real courage rarely is. The interview ended. The story ran online. A few thousand reads. Half called him a hero. Half called him a traitor. Within a week, everyone moved on, because that's the truth. The world doesn't care. Won't reward you. Won't remember you, but you'll remember. Every day. The choice you made and who you became because of it. The final moment. That night, Ethan returned to his apartment. Small, clean, sparse. No photos on the walls. Just a place to sleep. He made dinner. Ate alone. Watched the rain streak down the window, and on nights like this, and there were many, he'd close his eyes and see those photos. The hooded men. The smiling soldiers. The casual cruelty, and he'd know with absolute certainty that he'd made the right choice, even if the right choice cost him everything. His father, his hometown, his family, his life as he'd known it. Ethan Wade clicked on a folder 20 years ago. Then click destroyed his life and saved others. Both things are true. Both things will always be true. He's been living with that reality for 20 years. He'll live with it for however many he has left. And when people ask, and they still do occasionally, if it was worth it, he gives the only answer he has. I couldn't live with staying silent. Everything after was the price. Some prices are too high. Some are worth paying. Sometimes both statements describe the same choice. What would you have done in Ethan's position? Do you think his sacrifice was worth it? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below. If this story moved you, please consider subscribing. These forgotten voices deserve to be heard, and your support makes these stories possible.